So Elon Musk went from knowing next to nothing about rockets to becoming the CEO of the world's largest private space exploration company. And this is what's really interesting. Former engineer at SpaceX Robert Zubrin described just how quickly Musk was able to learn and absorb information in order to make the transition from rocket science rookie to becoming an industry-leading expert in just 6 years. He wrote, "He did not know anything about rockets. Nothing. That was in 2001. By 2007, he knew everything about rockets. He really knew everything in detail. Right now, I'm going through a similar process, albeit on a far smaller scale. I'm spending the next 3 months intensely studying the metaverse and all the subtopics surrounding it. So blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, Web 3.0, virtual reality, augmented reality. And right now, I have a fairly good understanding of some of those topics, but in 3 months, I want to have an advanced understanding. Not quite expert level, but a very good understanding of the metaverse." Now, that's a lot of information to absorb in 3 months. I mean, textbooks and textbooks of information. But in this video, I'm going to go through a few really powerful strategies that are helping me with my 3-month journey, and also some of the strategies that Elon Musk used himself to trigger this so-called sponge effect, where you absorb information like it's a sponge. Surround yourself with experts. So this is maybe the most powerful strategy when it comes to learning things fast. So just last night, I went to an NFT meetup here in Vietnam, and there were maybe 30 or so people there, but the amount of knowledge I absorbed was really insane. It lasted about 3 hours or so, and I learned more in that 3 hours than I ever could watching YouTube videos or reading textbooks, right? I think mainly because it's kind of an interactive way of learning. You're not just passively learning, but you're engaged, you're talking to people, you're asking questions, and they're asking you questions. And so for you, depending on what you're learning about, it might involve attending meetups like I did last night, or joining societies, or even just reaching out to experts in the field. And this is the exact strategy that Elon Musk used. In 2001, he would cold call industry leaders in the aerospace field, just hoping that they would pick up the phone. Jim Cantrell was an experienced aerospace engineer and an expert in Russian rockets at the time, having joined the French Space Agency in 1990 and going on to work on a joint French-Soviet Mars program. And Musk ended up cold calling him back in 2001, just before SpaceX was launched. And Cantrell explained, "I had the top down on my car, so all I could make out was that some guy named Elon Musk was saying that he was an internet billionaire and needed to talk to me. I'm pretty sure he used that phrase, internet billionaire." Now, obviously, he used the fact that he was already extremely successful to get people to talk to him, right? If you're starting out in a new field, then it can be difficult to get experts to talk to you for any length of time. So later on in the video, I'm going to give you an alternative strategy that you can implement instead. Now, Cantrell also wrote in a Quora post answering someone's question of how did Elon Musk learn enough about rockets to create and run SpaceX? He replied, "He literally sucks the knowledge and experience out of people that he's around. We also hired as many of my colleagues in the rocket and spacecraft business that were willing to consult with him." Learning from people much better at that particular area is such an incredibly effective way of learning, far more efficient than reading books or watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts, because when you're actually talking to someone one-on-one, you can receive direct feedback in real time. You can ask specifically focused questions. And it makes sense. When I was studying economics at university, I noticed something interesting. We would be taught in a matter of literally just hours things that the best economists in the world, so Nobel Prize winning economists, took decades to develop. Being a pioneer in the field is extremely difficult, but learning from those pioneers is far easier. Surround yourself with knowledge. So the first part of this video was about surrounding yourself with experts in the field, but that can be tricky, especially if you're completely new to that field. Like if you're new to economics, how are you going to get a Nobel Peace Prize winner to talk to you, right? But what you can do instead is to surround yourself with knowledge. I'll give you an example. Sometimes I browse Reddit, probably 3 or 4 times a day for 5 or 10 minutes. And what I've done is I've unfollowed all the subreddits that I was following before, and now I only follow subreddits that are relating to the metaverse, Web 3.0, the topics that I'm learning about. So even in my procrastination time. If I take out my phone to scroll through Reddit, I'm still learning because I'm reading about topics that I need to learn about. Similarly, when I'm having lunch or dinner, I'll usually turn on a documentary about NFTs on the TV rather than watching a film on Netflix. But the main part of this is to be studying actively, meaning when you watch documentaries about what you're learning, when you watch YouTube videos, when you read textbooks, it's really important to take notes of the key points. So let's say you learn something new, so you write it down in your own words. And this does a few things. Firstly, it makes sure that you are actually actively learning and you're activating your neurotransmitters and processing and retaining that information. But secondly, it's forcing you to write down the key points in your own words. And if you can't write it in your own words, then it probably means that you don't really understand it on a deep enough level. And thirdly, you can implement spaced repetition, so you can come back to those notes a few days later to refresh and reinforce that knowledge in your long-term memory. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see students do, is that they study, but they study passively, meaning that a lot of the information that they're consuming, they forget about it almost immediately. It's like if you've ever read a page in a book, but then you get to the end of the page and you've completely forgotten what you just read. That's because you were reading passively rather than actively, and it's such a massive kind of waste of time. So if you take anything away from this video, make sure that you're asking yourself questions, you're writing things down, and you're actively engaging with what you're reading. And it will speed the learning process up so much. And it's something that the courses on Brilliant, the sponsor of this video, do extremely well. So Brilliant is a platform that I'm using right now to learn about advanced computer science and cryptocurrency that teaches quantitative skills in maths, science, and computer science with hands-on interactive lessons. So I'm working my way through their cryptocurrency course right now, and there's a few reasons why I prefer learning this way rather than, say, for example, reading a textbook. The paragraphs are very short and digestible, complex topics are broken down into easy to understand explanations, there are quizzes after many of the lessons, so again there's that element of interactivity, so you're not just passively learning, but you're learning actively, so it forces you to kind of process the information you learn, therefore storing it in your long-term memory. And the Brilliant platform is just an incredible way to study large amounts of information in a very short space of time. If you know anything about me, I'm really all about learning as much information as efficiently as possible, and the Brilliant platform does an amazing job at delivering on that. You can tell they really do know how the brain functions and how the memory processes and stores information just by the way they kind of structure their courses with so many interactive exercises. They have a wide range of courses covering maths, science, and computer science, so if you're studying any of those subjects, I really do recommend you check them out. You can join the millions of people already learning on Brilliant. Get started for free at brilliant.org/ProductElon. The link is in the description below, and if you click on that link, the first 200 listeners will receive 20% discount off their annual membership subscription. Dial in your focus. The idea here is that you can't be an expert in everything, right? You just can't. There is far too many things going on in the world to be extremely knowledgeable about everything. So it's important to really focus on the exact topics that you want to be an expert in and don't stray too far from them. So for example, if I'm learning about how Ethereum works, for example, and I only have a short period of time to study how it works, I would make sure not to get distracted with kind of subtopics like how Bitcoin works, right? I would stay absolutely focused on how Ethereum works, because the broader the area you're studying, the less in depth you can go, but the narrower the area that you're studying, the more of an expert you can become in that niche. You also need to prioritize what topics you're studying. Really, you should be focusing on the most important topics, and once you've nailed down those important stuff, then you can then move into the finer details and even the subtopics. And kind of related to that, you do need to have purpose when you're studying. So for example, for me, I have a couple of business projects that I'm working on relating to the metaverse. So I really need to have a very good understanding of those topics. So for you, you might have an exam on that topic in 2 months' time. For someone like Elon Musk, his goal is slightly bigger, aiming to make humans a multiplanetary species. And that goal will give your studying purpose. It will keep you focused on what you need to learn about and stop you from kind of straying off topic too much. Read books. One of the main ways Elon Musk was able to turn himself into an aerospace expert in just a few years was that he read books. He read a lot of books, and he often credits much of his success to this. So throughout his childhood, books have played a crucial role in fueling his ambition. At the age of 9, he read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica and would pore through science fiction novels for 10 or more hours a day. And Elon's uncle Scott Haldeman said he never went anywhere without a book in his hand. He was always reading, and it was always advanced books. That was one of the earliest things you started seeing. It was this intense reading, and there were books about the future and about success. According to his brother, Musk would read through 2 books a day, and if you, like the average person, read 1 book a month, that means Musk would read 60 times as many books as you, and from a whole range of disciplines, from Soviet rocket manuals, encyclopedias, science fiction, and biographies.
Biographies, I think, are really always, really interesting read.
What you learn from them?
Well, I think you learn a lot, depending upon whose life you're reading about. There are lots of lessons in there. I read Isaacson's biography of Jobs, which I thought was quite interesting. And I actually really liked his biography of Benjamin Franklin, who I would say is certainly one of my heroes. He seemed like a really great guy.
Musk firmly believes that most people can learn faster and learn more efficiently, more than they actually realize. He wrote in a Reddit comment, "I think most people can learn a lot more than they think they can. They sell themselves short without trying." And reading biographies can help combat that by showing you that if you play your cards right, extraordinary things can happen. So whatever it is you're studying for, whether it's for a new business venture like me, or for an exam that you have coming up, or just because you're interested in that particular subject, just remember it's not the number of hours that you put in, it's about how you use those hours. Like I always say, study smarter, not harder. And for more information, how you can study smarter, you can check out a video I made a couple of months ago called 7 Ways I Study Smart, Not Hard. You can click on the video on the screen. It's probably one of my favorite videos. I also made another video on how I study 12 hours a day with 100% focus. I uploaded that video just a few weeks ago, but you guys really seem to like it. It's my best performing video in the last 4 months, I think. And finally, the sponsor of this video, Brilliant, do check them out. They do an amazing job of simplifying really quite complex topics into easy to understand bite-sized nuggets of information. There's a link you can click in the description below.